Talida. I'm a 35-year-old mum. I'm a women's health influencer and blogger. I like to study, so I have some postgraduate studies in biomedical science, which was focused on reproductive endocrinology and nutrition science. And I'm also a fertility awareness educator. Why do I do it? I do it because, unfortunately, a long time ago, I had a very severe reaction to my hormonal birth control, which gave me a very traumatic health experience. And during the time, I found very little support in any sort of medical area. And I used my own research and knowledge to get myself better. And I just found that there was a huge lack of knowledge in general for women about women's bodies and their health and how to live a life as a woman. And so I just became very passionate about that, and I decided to keep learning and sharing my findings with other women. Okay, so my biggest health tip for teenage girls would be to start focusing on their diet and lifestyle habits young. Start early, because the younger you start, the better it will be for you at every stage of your life as a woman. So if you start implementing healthy habits when you're in puberty, then once you hit your reproductive years, pregnancy, breastfeeding, and menopause, it will go much smoother for you the whole way through. And my other tip for teenage girls would be to be patient, because it takes quite a number of years for hormones to balance out during puberty. And just because you have horrible cycles now does not mean that they will always be that way. Right, so I don't necessarily promote vegan diets. I promote plant-based diets, which is any diet that has 80 to 85% whole plant foods as its base. So vegan diets are a part of that, but also vegetarian, pescatarian, Mediterranean diets, flexitarian, any range of diets that have plants as the basis. We don't have too much evidence suggesting that a vegan diet, which is 100% plants, is superior to a Mediterranean diet that's about 85% plants. But we do know that once you start eating more animal products, then we do see negative health consequences across the board, including women's health issues and fertility. Okay, so faith was a really big part of my personal journey. And although I don't talk about faith too much on my platform, I believe in living by design. So I believe that we were created by a created God, and that God has set laws into place. And the closer that we align ourselves with the laws of nature that God has created, the better our health will be. So another thing is that I know that God cares about women, and He wants to elevate women to the place that they should be. And I think that women for centuries have suffered from a lack of knowledge of how their bodies work, and it's been deemed as too difficult to understand the female body for centuries. And because of that, women have suffered. And I really do think that God wants that to change for women. Okay, so there are three main hormones in the female menstrual cycle: estrogen, progesterone, and a little bit of testosterone. The biggest difference between women and men, women of reproductive years, which includes puberty, is that women are cyclical. So we do run on a 24-hour clock, but we also run on a monthly clock. And our state of being is quite different depending on what part of the month that you're at. So menstrual cycle hormones run down. At the beginning of your bleed, hormones are at their lowest point during the month. Around this time, the brain will start to secrete FSH hormone, called follicle stimulating hormone. This hormone stimulates a group of follicles in the ovary to secrete estrogen. When estrogen reaches a certain point, the brain then sends out another hormone called LH hormone, or luteinizing hormone, which will tell the ovary to secrete one of the eggs in the one of the maturing follicles. This is ovulation. After this, the ruptured follicle left behind turns into a endocrine gland that sits on the ovary, which then secretes progesterone. And progesterone will continue to be secreted along with a little bit of estrogen for about 14 days on average. It can't really last too much longer than that unless a pregnancy has occurred. And the drop of both progesterone and estrogen signals the start of the next period, and then the cycle starts again. A normal period is considered to be anywhere between 21 to 35 days. However, in puberty, it's actually extended to about 45 days. And that's because a lot of the time during puberty, a lot of the cycles can be anovulatory. So that means you can get a bleed without ovulation, and those are usually longer cycles. Usually for most girls, the first period will happen anywhere between the age of 11 to 14. And most cases, the very first period happens without ovulation. So this is when the body is getting prepped up to ovulate, and it will try, and estrogen will rise and then fall, rise and fall. And ovulation doesn't actually occur, but you still get a bleed because it has built up the lining. Over time, you will eventually establish ovulation, but it is usually quite irregular. So periods will be quite irregular for a period of time, and it actually takes up to 12 years for the menstrual cycle to fully mature. Now, even when you do establish ovulation during puberty, the progesterone secreting gland can't produce enough progesterone at first. So progesterone is usually quite low in comparison to estrogen, which is high. So this will mean that during puberty, you'll have bigger mood swings, you'll have heavier periods and more painful periods, but it doesn't last forever. So hormones are actually very tightly linked with our neurotransmitters in our brain, and they affect our mood quite significantly. So our estrogen that happens in the first part of the cycle, we need estrogen to help us absorb the neurotransmitter serotonin. And serotonin is probably one of our biggest neurotransmitters, and it keeps us happy, good mood, motivated, and not anxious. It also works with dopamine as well, and dopamine keeps you motivated. So usually in that first part of the cycle, when your estrogen is high, you'll get a burst of creativity and motivation, and you'll be feeling on top of the world, high energy, quite happy, also a little bit impulsive. So that's how estrogen affects the mood. Progesterone, on the other hand, is quite a calming hormone, so it works with the neurotransmitter GABA, and GABA is our calming neurotransmitter. It helps us relax and calm down after we've become anxious. It helps us come down from that. So progesterone is actually a much slower paced, calming part of the month, and usually in the progesterone part of the month, we feel more introverted. We don't want to socialize as much. We also get very detailed orientated. So it's the part of the month where you'll feel like cleaning and organizing a lot more, and just staying at home and being a fat slob on the couch. That's what you feel like doing in that mode. Yeah. So a lot of these are all normal reactions. A lot of the imbalances with the mood usually occur because of too much estrogen in relation to progesterone, which is actually very common in puberty. And that can create quite big mood swings because your serotonin is going up and down and you don't have enough GABA to relax you in puberty. So it's a rough ride. Well, the good news is that if you are proactive, you can really support your body in balancing your mood and your hormones with the right diet and lifestyle exercises, and especially starting on stress management from a young age. The good news is that you can support yourself and make this a less, I don't know how, as a teenager, because you're too concerned about what other people think of you. You just have to lower stress. And that's it. And then, yeah, the better you do that, the better it will be for you going on in life. And I wish I did it.